Recently, my player 2 and I finally moved into our newly built house, and let me tell you, this thing rocks.
Double shower heads! Kick-ass theatre!
Even though it's still a work in progress, a much better game room than what I had in the previous house. I mean, look at this.
And a sick recreation room for everyone to enjoy. Yes!
So what could possibly get any better than this? Well, at the time of filming 2 weeks ago, we actually treated ourselves to perhaps, in my opinion, the greatest attraction to this recreation room, and it's actually sitting right behind this wall. And with that being said, I present to you the 2-player shooter arcade machine supplied to us by Arcade Rewind. Ever since this thing arrived nearly 2 weeks ago now, every single day it has been turned on and used extensively, and we both have been having so much fun with it. And with me being the arcade freak that I am, as I built one myself several months ago, I couldn't help myself. I had to open it up, inspect it, and learn more about it, and see if it is actually worth the $3,380 price tag that it comes with. So, is it worth that much? Let's investigate. Back in 2019, I actually purchased a WrestleMania branded arcade machine from Arcade Rewind as a Christmas present for myself, and I've loved it ever since. In fact, I became so obsessed with the arcade scene that I actually built one myself, as you just saw in the intro. 4 years later, my wife and I finally moved into our newly built home, and after decking out the recreation room with my family's 35-year-old pool table, my custom bar top arcade, and my wife's Doctor Who bar fridge, there was still this big blank space that I just wanted to fill up. Unfortunately, the WrestleMania machine will get in the way of the pool table far too much, so we decided that it now lives in a new theatre. Later that night, I thought I'd have a look at Arcade Rewind again and see if there were any new additions to the store. And surely enough, a new shooter arcade range has just been added to the website, and now one of those machines lives in the new recreation room. So, how is it? Well, let's start with the exterior quality. Just like the WrestleMania machine, the material used here is melamine MDF, and it's all held together with a combination of brad nails, heavy-duty staples, and screws and brackets. Measuring in at 174cm high, 62cm deep, and 82cm wide, and approximately 100 kilos with all the hardware inside, this thing is very strong and very sturdy. Arcade Rewind never disappoints with the build quality of their machines. And just like the WrestleMania machine again, there are handles and wheels at the back, although it is pretty easy to slide around on the floor to where you want it without damaging it. Although that really depends on the floor itself. The shooter arcades come in both 2-player and 4-player configurations, and the only artwork designs available are the point blank style or the multi-art design, and as you can see, I chose the 2-player multi-art design for myself. The 32-inch IPS display is also protected with a sheet of glass instead of acrylic, which is nice since acrylic is more prone to dirt marks and scratches. However, the marquee up top is protected with acrylic, which isn't really a big deal because in that position, it is less likely to get dirty. Opening up the back panel reveals the 32-inch IPS gaming display. Now don't let the looks of this panel fool you. While it may look violently out of date compared to what's on the market right now, and the only 2 video inputs are VGA and DVI, these types of displays are specifically made for arcade cabinets and are available for purchase brand new. And how can I tell this is an IPS display, you ask? Well, not only was I told that by Arcade Rewind, but they have 2 big giveaways. Vibrant colors, as you can now see, and accurate viewing angles. Notice how the colors don't shift or the image gets darker when looking at it from different angles? That is what you want in an arcade machine. And since I daily drive an IPS gaming display myself, I don't doubt this display one bit. The buttons and joysticks have a very satisfying feel to them as you move and press them, and they also have a nice tactile audible feedback, which is what you want. And of course at the front of the unit is the legendary coin slot, which actually doesn't function right out of the gate. In order to use it, you have to raise this mechanism here, slide in a $1 or $2 coin into the slot underneath, and then your second income is all set up and ready to use. You can't just press this button here and add more credits to your games, but money makes the world go round, right? Opening up the cabinet at the front, the first things that we see are the two power supply units mounted at the back and the coin holder in the front. And looking over to the right, here is a PC platform that has been converted into what is called a Games Family arcade system board, with a USB to JAMMA encoder for the controls. You can learn more about the JAMMA standard in a video that I've linked in the description below. Now this type of setup isn't anything new. The JAMMA standard has been around since the mid-80s, and back in the early 2000s, when the home PC became even more powerful than proprietary arcade system boards, manufacturers began using PCs to power their arcade machines and turning them into arcade system boards like this one. And just for laughs, I connected one of my SSDs to this board with Windows installed on it. And here I can see that this board is running a 4th generation Intel Core i3 CPU and 4 gigs of DDR3 RAM. Definitely on the older side, which is a little disappointing, but most arcade boards like this use this type of hardware anyway. And honestly, I'm all for it. I would much rather hardware like this get repurposed instead of just ending up in a landfill somewhere. And while I personally think the price should be dropped a bit considering the age of the hardware, it definitely could be worse, because there are other options out there that cost more and deliver less, or cost less but deliver terrible value. The Zapper guns themselves are absolutely fantastic. They are powered by the board's USB slots instead of the JAMMA encoder, and they have a separate power cord for the recoil motor. And just like the PlayStation 1 light guns, these ones are very comfortable to hold, and the recoil effect makes them even more satisfying to use. The IR sensors for the light guns are visible on all sides of the display itself. And for the best experience, make sure you stand at least this far back from the screen. Any closer and you'll be faced with calibration issues or the light guns themselves refusing to function. And now, we move on to the games list. This Games Family board has a massive 4,700 games to choose from and a different variety of categories, ranging from all the classics like Frogger, Pac-Man and Galaga, the favourites like Mortal Kombat, Tekken and one of my personal favourites, WrestleMania, and popular platformers like Sonic the Hedgehog and Super Mario Bros. But the real star of the show today is the shooting games, and this has a nice selection to choose from. Terminator 2, Duck Hunt, Jurassic Park, Ghoul Panic, Point Blank 1 and 2, Steel Gunner 1 and 2, House of the Dead 1, 2 and 3, Virtua Cop 1 and 2, and this machine's killer app, Time Crisis. So how do they perform? Well, I am proud to say that 13 of the shooter games I played were a great experience. Time Crisis on the other hand did struggle a bit. Now I knew about this beforehand as I tried out the cabinet in store before I bought it. But there I was told that that model is the old one that they don't ship anymore and I will be getting my hands on a newer model instead. And when I fired up Time Crisis once I got my hands on it, I noticed that while it still struggled a bit, it definitely was much more playable on this newer model. Here's a quick comparison between the old model and the new one.
Action! Reload! Action!
Now there are other games on here that did struggle to run properly, but luckily they weren't the more popular ones that you will find yourself playing on this machine, with the exception of Mortal Kombat 4, although the slowdowns here don't really interfere with the gameplay much. We can speed things up by plugging in a keyboard and pressing the F9 key to increase the MAME arcade emulator's frame skipping option.
Action!
The bad news here is that every time you close the game and load it back up again, you'd have to reset the frame skip because there's no way to save the settings. Most of the time though, using frame skip isn't really necessary, and unless you have a wireless keyboard on hand, it will get very annoying having to open up the cabinet and plug in a keyboard to use it. Pressing F2 on the keyboard loads up the game's mainboard settings, where you can do other things like adjust credit requirements, enable free play, reset scores, change the game region, etc. Each game menu has different button configurations from each other, so when you make adjustments in here, take it slow. So should you grab one of these machines for yourself? Well, let's start off with all the good points. The build quality, as usual, is top notch, and it really would make you question whether this actually came from China or not. The 32-inch IPS display looks amazing. The speakers are very decent, buttons and joysticks feel great to use, the light guns and the satisfying recoil function, honestly, I could go on. But just because I can go on doesn't mean that this thing is perfect. The board itself is kind of underwhelming, with some games struggling to run on it. And just because I, or many others, won't play those types of games, I mean, as if I'm gonna play all 4,700 of these, it doesn't mean that someone else won't. And because of that, even though there are still worse deals out there, the price I feel is a little bit on the higher side at $3,380. Maybe it's time to either A, reduce the price a little bit, or B, use slightly older hardware, like a 3rd generation Ryzen platform, or even a 10th or 11th generation Intel platform. Now, unfortunately, we can't just take out the SSD in this machine and plug it into another PC, because while the software does technically work, the games refuse to load. And that's because all the software on here has been set up to operate only on that specific hardware. But regardless of all that, this machine has been a hit in our new house, providing heaps of entertainment to us and our visitors. And unless you're able to find something that's both better and cheaper, this option, in my opinion, is a really hard one to pass up.
Thanks for watching, guys. Drop a like in this video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already for more future content headed your way. And be sure to give me a like and follow on my social medias, links in the video description below. And if I don't see you in the next video, I'll catch you in my game. Game on! Come here, you piece of